Hi everyone, what is up? Welcome back to my channel, Glam By Sam. For today's video, I have a 3 looks 1 palette with the new Natasha Denona Retro palette. I recently uploaded a review video where I did swatches, I shared some information about the palette, and I also did an eye look. But then in that video, I asked you guys if you wanted to see a 3 looks 1 palette, and Emily commented that she wanted to see this video. So Emily, this video is for you. Today I'm sharing 3 looks with the Natasha Denona Retro palette because this palette is absolutely stunning. So in my previous video I did more of the mauve eye look, and now I want to go ahead and use some of the other shades as well to see like if we can create 3 different eye looks than the one that I did in my recent video. So this look that I'm wearing right now is part of it. So if you want to see how I created this look and then also 2 different eye looks with this retro palette, then please keep watching. So excited to play with this again because if you saw my last video where I did a review, I was really happy with this palette and I just love it so much. The color story is so me and I just know I'm going to get a lot of use out of this. But in my previous video we created a look with these like mauve shades right here because those were the ones I was like most excited about. But this shade right here, the darker sort of like greeny brown called Opart, is looking absolutely beautiful, so I want to use that today. And then this shimmer called Jude looks absolutely beautiful, so I really want to use those shades today. So the look I'm going to be creating right now is sort of going to be more of that like greeny browny look, so I'm excited to see how that is going to turn out. So just like in my last video, I'm going to be using the light shade called Maud for all over the lid, just so we have a nice base going on. And this is just her regular creamy matte formula. Has quite a bit of kick up in the pan and also a bit of like excess shadow coming off the brush when you tap it off, but on the eyes it looks really pretty and it just like it's not patchy or anything. And this is a really beautiful matte light shade. So I always like to go in with a lighter base shadow like this because I have pretty oily eyelids and I also like to have like an even canvas to work with. And now I want to try this shade here called Vivienne, and I'm going to apply that through the crease, but I actually have no idea how that is going to look like. I was thinking to use the shade Nude Mauve, but I used that in my last eye look and kind of want to try a different shade. But if I don't like the shade or I want to add a bit of that Nude Mauve, then I'll go in with that later. So I'm just going to go in this shade with this fluffy brush from Sigma, and this is actually the cream to powder formula. So you're going to notice a lot less kick up in the pan, but on the eyes you maybe need to build it up a little bit more. So this is a really light shade. Also, when I swatched all of these shades in my last video with the retro palette, I could tell that this is super light. So as you can see, it's really similar to that first base shade. So I'm definitely going to go in with that Nude Mauve shade as well. I'm going to take the shade Nude Mauve instead because I do want a little bit more pigment, and I do believe that Nude Mauve is just her creamy matte formula. And as you can see right away, that looks much more pigmented. So I'm just adding this through the crease and then just buffing it out. So as you can see, this shade doesn't need a lot of building. It's really pigmented and it's also blending out really nicely. So this is definitely one of my favorite shades from the palette. I think it works really well. So then, now that we have applied this shade throughout the crease, I'm going to take this other side of this brush, and this is a Sigma E54 medium sweeper brush. I really like this to apply these shadows, and I'm going to be taking the shade called Opart, which is this darker shade right here, and this is also the cream to powder formula. So I wonder how much building this is going to need, but we're just going to apply it and see how it looks like on the eye. So I'm just like tapping this on the outer corner. So first I'm building it up and then I'm blending it. So now just tapping this. And as you can see, this is a really like kind of like dark brown, and as you can see, I apply that in quite a messy way, but it is blending out so smooth. Like, can you see that? That's already super smooth. And this kind of reminds me of a shade that maybe would be in the Glam palette. I don't own the Glam palette, but I heard quite a few people say that they thought it was like a bit close to the Glam palette in terms of the undertone. This palette definitely has more of that cool undertone, just like the Glam palette, but the Glam palette doesn't have like the mauve shades, but this shade could definitely be a shade that could like maybe for instance be in the Glam palette. And as you can see, that blended out really smoothly. I might build that up in a little bit, but I'm first going to do the same thing on the other eye. So now I'm taking a bit more of that nude mauve shade on a other blending brush, and then I'm just going to blend everything together. So now that that is blended out, it definitely doesn't have as much of that green undertone to it that I thought it was going to have, but nonetheless it's still looking pretty, but it's definitely more of that like purpley gray type of shade. Now I'm going to try to slightly deepen this up using a bit more of that shade and just like pressing it on the outer corners and then blending it. So now I'm taking the fluffy shade again that we used for that first base shade, and I'm going to sort of like try to diffuse these edges a little bit because they're a little too harsh for my liking, and sort of like also bring that to the lower lash line. So for the shimmer, I'm going to be taking this flat like brush, and I'm going to take the shade Jude like I said, and as you can see, that's pretty pigmented. That is gorgeous. So this is definitely more of that gray shimmer, but it goes so well with this look. So as you can see, this is much more of a cool tone like gray look than that purpley look, but it still has that mauve undertone to it because of the blending shades that we used. But this looks absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to apply it with my finger, and with your finger you're definitely getting a bit more pigment. I have to say, I wish there was kind of like a black in here to deepen up the outer corners a bit more. That is something that maybe I'm missing, but for the rest, I'm happy with the shade so far. And I'm also missing like a bit of an inner corner shade. There's not really like an inner corner light shimmery shade apart from the pink duochrome. And I don't feel like that is going to go with the look super well. So I don't think we're going to be using a lighter shimmer today. So now I'm just going to apply some mascara, and then I'll be back for the second look of the palette. So I have just applied some mascara, and then this is how look number 1 turned out like. As we all know, I don't have the most impressive lashes, so it's not that big of a difference, but I did want to apply some mascara just to like finish up the look. And I have to say, I like how this turned out. It's definitely a bit different because it's much more like cool toned than I normally wear, but I definitely like it. I think it looks pretty, and that shimmer shade was so smooth. So I do like how this is looking like, and now let's get started with look number 2. So I'm back for look number 2 and 3 with the beautiful Natasha Denona Retro palette. Of course, the first look that we did was more of that cool tone look, and now I at least want to use like those warm tones in one look. And then for the other look, I think I want to go back in the mauves, but do more of like a halo eye, if that makes sense. I think we're just going to first do the more warm toned eye look, and I'm going to do one look on each side. So I am going to end up with 2 different eye looks, but that's not a problem. I'll remove it before I go to work. So like I did with my other looks as well, I'm going to go in the shade called Maud and apply that all over the lid as a base shade. So actually on my channel you're getting 4 looks with this Natasha Denona palette, because I of course already did 1 look in my review, and in this video I'm doing 3. So if you need inspiration for this palette, then this video is perfect for you. But I just use this shade so we have an even base all over the lid. So now taking that exact same brush, I'm going to go in the shade called Go Go, and I'm going to apply that throughout the crease. And I believe Go Go was also a cream to powder, so let's see how this one works. And this shade definitely has a warmer undertone than the other ones in the palette. It's kind of like a coral. It's really pretty though. Then taking this dual-ended brush from Sigma Beauty, I'm going to be taking the shade called Amara, and with the Sigma E54 medium sweeper brush, I'm going to put this on the outer corners of the lid, and then I'm going to blend it with the other sides, which is the Sigma E38 diffuse crease brush. And this is just the brush that comes with the Sigma Ambiance palette. I use this one a lot. Patting this on the outer corner, and then just blending that out with the other side, and this shade is really pigmented. And then taking a little bit of that shade on this crease brush, I'm just going to add it to the crease directly and then blending it out. And then taking the residue that is still on this brush, I'm going to tap this onto the lower lash line just a little bit, and then blend it out with that other side of the blending brush. This is a really pretty shade and it's also blending pretty nicely. So the cream to powder formula is a bit harder to build up, but it's easier to blend than this creamy matte formula. However, this one blends really nicely too. To deepen it up a tiny bit, I'm going to add a little bit more of that shade. Then I'm going to take a little bit more of that shade called Go-Go on this crease brush as well, and just bringing that back into the crease. Then just taking this clean fluffy brush with no extra shadow, I'm just blending this all together. Then using a flat brush, I'm going to go in the shade called Patty and apply that all over the lid, and this is actually a shimmer shade. So let's see what that one looks like. So it kind of looks like a bronzy shimmer shade. Yeah, so this is definitely a shade I want to apply with my finger for some extra pigment. This is kind of a weird shade. It's looking metallic in the pan, but it's not really metallic on my eye. Like, it's almost a matte, and I know this one is described on the box as a creamy matte, I believe, which people were saying that was incorrect, and it is actually a metallic. So I am going to go over it with a different shade. So I'm going to use this one right here called Helio, and I'm going to apply that one all over the lid where we just put that Patty shade as well. And this is definitely more of a cool tone shimmer, but I don't want to apply the pink because we already did with the other looks. And then once again for this look, I am missing a inner corner shade as well. I wish there was like a very light shimmer, kind of like a light silver or something, to add into the inner corner for some extra like dimension, because now we have just one shimmer all over the lid. And I usually like to add a bit of a lighter shade to the inner corners and also the center of the eye. But I still think this is a pretty look. It's definitely not as warm toned as I thought, which I like. It definitely has more of that mauve tone, but it's still like on the warmer side compared to the other looks that we did. So I think this is how I'm going to leave this look. Let's get started with this look, and then at the end I'm going to apply the mascara to both sides so you can see what it looks like finished. So then for look number 3, I'm going to start with the shade Mod as well and apply that all over the lid. Kind of boring, but I just need a base shade like this. So now taking that exact same brush, I'm going to take the shade Andy and apply that throughout the crease. And this is also the cream to powder formula. Then taking a little bit of nude mauve, I'm going to put that through the crease as well. So then taking that same Sigma brush, I'm wiping this off on my hand, but I'm going to take the shade Groove and I'm going to put that on the flat side and just wipe it off on my hand real quick. But I'm just going to tap this on the outer corner and then also in the inner corner for the halo eye. And then taking the other side, I'm just blending that throughout the crease. And make sure you leave this center part empty, so you make sure that no extra shadow is coming on that part, because that is what's going to create the halo eye. If you do get shadow on this part, you can always add a bit of eyeshadow base or concealer to lighten it up again, but I prefer to just leave it blank like this. Taking a slightly bit more of that shade Groove on the fluffy brush, I'm going to press that directly onto the outer corner and blend it into the crease. Adding a little bit more to the inner corner. And then blending it using this clean brush. Then using a flat brush, I'm taking a little bit of the shade Andy and adding that to the lower lash line. And then blending it with this clean, flat, fluffy brush. And using my finger, I'm going to take this middle shimmer shade called Psychedelic and add it over the center part that we left empty. Look at that shade, how beautiful is that? Kinda has some blue and purple like particles in there. And then this is what look number 3 is looking like. I'm now going to apply some mascara to both eyes and then I'll show you the final looks. So here is what both looks turned out like now that we are wearing mascara. This side is much more off like that halo eye, and then this one is just like more of a softer, like easier look. So I like how both looks turned out. I like the shades that I used. Like I said, the only shade I was kind of disappointed by was the shade Patty, because it wasn't really metallic but it wasn't really matte either, so I'm not sure what that shade is supposed to be like.
but this is what the looks turned out, as you can see. Just really simple, and I have hooded eyes, so I usually stay away from liquid liner, but if you don't have hooded eyes and you have like a nice eye shape to wear like a winged liner, that would be really pretty with this look maybe, just to like spice things up a little bit. But this is just a really pretty like soft eye look, and then this one is a little bit more special with these shimmers, but I think both looks are really pretty. Okay guys, and this was it for the 3 looks 1 palette with the Natasha Denona Retro palette. I thought I would do the outro with this one cohesive eye look instead of 2 different eye looks on my face. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope that you enjoyed seeing the different looks that we created with this palette. I'm still really happy with this palette, and I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to get so much use out of this. I think the shades work really well. There's a few shades I was a bit more disappointed by, but the rest of the shades I really like. I definitely prefer the regular matte formula over the cream to powder formula, but as you could see, for instance, with this eye look, it's still blended really nicely. So I will have this palette linked down below in case you want to buy it as well. Then if you did enjoy this video or the eye looks, then I would absolutely love it if you gave it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you don't want to miss any of my videos. All of these things would help me so much with my channel, and I'd really appreciate it. But with that said, I want to thank you guys all so much for watching. I really hope you have an amazing day, and I really hope to see you in my next video. Bye!